2, 3. Hi guys, thanks for listening. I am Ollie, an expert on gender.
I'm Michael, and I'm expert on race.
I'm Liu, and I'm going to talk about ethnic nationalism.
And today we'll be tackling the question, is modern sport simply a reflection of society's history? Through the use of concepts and theories in the analysis of sport in the present day. The concepts we explore include gender, race and nationalism, which we find provide us an overview of modern sport, which leads me on to one of the many areas of social scientific study that sport finds itself entangled with, gender. The cases of the athletes Caster Semenya and Imane Khalif speak of this. Caster Semenya is a former two-time Olympic champion in the 800-meter event and is respectively a woman. However, Semenya's story is not all about her incredible achievement. Semenya and fellow gold medalist Imane Khalif have had their careers challenged and in many ways have been dehumanized. Sport in its modernity and historically has been divided into two categories by sex, explicitly male and female. And this is for many reasons, most importantly safety and equality in competition, due to the biological differences of men and women. In the cases of Caster Semenya and Imane Khalif, their eligibility to compete has been doubted and challenged. This is where understanding the difference between sex and gender becomes important. As suggested by Lindqvist and co., gender can be understood or interpreted through four facets: physiological bodily aspects, self-defined gender identity, legal gender, and gender expression, including social norms related to appearance and behaviour. Gender is often assumed, considered by traditionalists perhaps as binary and dichotomous, synonymous with sex, and is a scrutinised concept not entertained where hegemonic masculinity is prevalent. As a result of society's history and perhaps the continuous adoption of neoclassicism, gender is prospectively casted on a spectrum, with at one end being hegemonic masculinity and the other traditional femininity ideology. In Caster Semenya's case against the IAAF, which involved invasive gender testing, in its conclusion under Cass, gender was deemed to be measurable as a matter of rationality regarding sport, and henceforth binary. Semenya, sex assigned at birth a woman, was found to have a form of DSD called 46XY, resulting in Semenya possessing higher testosterone levels and internal testes. As a result, Semenya was given such options as to take testosterone reductive medication in order to continue to compete. Not only does this decision and similar decisions dehumanize athletes such as Caster Semenya and Imane Khalif, it challenges public discourse around gender. However, by many, it may be seen as befitting in protecting the legitimacy of sport and its athletes. Meanwhile, athletes such as the infamous Michael Phelps are heralded for their achievement and genetic advantages, treated as superhuman. Reflective of hegemonic masculinity, an outlook and concept that, as referred to by Connell and Messerschmitt, seeks to legitimize male supremacy, Caster Semenya and Imane Khalif are portrayed as freaks. This is sadly little to no surprise in a sector dominated by men, where women are sexualized and their talent undermined. The cases of Semenya and Khalif, as well as those similar, are demonstrative of how sport still has its roots firmly planted in history and can be seen simply by looking at the composition of sports governing bodies and institutions, which are inherently populated by white heterosexual middle to upper class males according to observations. Hence, through processes such as Irving Janis's notion of groupthink, such views and decisions are reproductively normative and habitual, while concepts such as black femininity are not considered or appreciated. What is next to consider is where does race find itself situated?
Now we are moving on to the analysis of race issues in sport, and we will do that by answering the research question which framed the structure and the content of my research. The research question is next. What is the values of using white supremacy and colonialism theories in the analysis of race issues in sport, and examples of Caster Semenya, Eva Kolubakovska, and Nikki Hiltz? To start with, I will provide some explanation of white supremacy and colonialism theories and their application to sport. White supremacy theory explains how white racial dominance is maintained through cultural, social, political, and economic systems, both historically and today. It highlights how white people, particularly of European descent, have held power over non-white groups, focusing on racism and systematic inequality. In sports, this theory shows how racial hierarchies and institutional racism persist, with white athletes often privileged, while black and brown athletes are marginalized or scrutinized. Colonialism theory examines how one country controls and exploits another, primarily driven by European powers from the mid-15th to mid-20th century. In sports, colonialism theory helps us understand how colonial legacies still impact athletes from marginalized or formerly colonized communities. Now we are moving on to the debate part of exploring race issues in sport. Let's see if there is a real value in using white supremacy and colonialism concepts in the analysis of race issues in sport on actual case examples. Is there an effect of racialized gender norms and the Western ideals of femininity in gender in the cases influenced by white supremacy and colonialism? If look only through the lenses of white supremacy and colonialism theories, then Caster Semenya case fully highlights how white-dominated sporting institutions often impose Western ideals of femininity and gender, which don't account for natural biological diversity. Semenya, she is a black woman, has been subject to invasive testing and public scrutiny due to her perceived masculinity. In contrast, white athletes who may have high levels of testosterone or unconventional physical characteristics are not subjected to the same level of scrutiny. And I would say that I only agree to a certain extent with this statement. Yes, there is a case for discrimination in the media, since her case was largely discussed in the media comparing to cases of white female athletes with differences in sexual development. And as you can see on the slide, some of the media outlets even portrayed her as genuinely feminine only when she puts a makeup on, has a salon hairstyle, and wears a dress, typical features of Western ideals of femininity. On the other hand, I have found very few articles and news adopting the sports achievement and sex and gender of athlete Nikki Hiltz, who is an American middle distance runner and was assigned female at birth, has more masculine look, and considers herself as non-binary. Hiltz won a silver medal at the 2024 World Athletics Indoor Championships. But if we talking about actual decisions difference made on cases of white comparing to other races female athletes, both with differences in sexual development, there is not much difference. For example, Ewa Klubkowska, a Polish former sprinter, she competed at the 1964 Olympics and won gold and a bronze medal respectively. She was banned from competing in professional sports, even she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. According to the World Athletics, she had one chromosome too many, which was the reason sporting body doesn't consider her as a female. So as we can see, similar decisions were made to ban female athletes with sexual differences regardless of their race. So going back to our research question, yes, white supremacy and colonialism theory largely contribute to the analysis of race issues. However, actual cases are too complicated, and each one of them could have various angles to be seen from, and other theories could be applied for more in-depth analysis. In response to what I introduced with white supremacy and colonialism theories, some ethnic groups were underpressed for a long period, and Leo, our expert on nationalism issues in sport, found that ethical nationalism is an interesting aspect to talk about, so he continues our podcast from here.
Respond to what Michael introduced, some ethnic groups were underpressed for a long period. I found ethnic nationalism in sport is an interesting aspect that I should go to do some deeper research. We'll start by the Nadam Festival, which is a Mongolian festival, and there are three main sports in this festival: archery, horse racing, and wrestling. It has lasted for centuries, officially starts organized from 1639 under Chinese Qing dynasty's rule. And it was held in different regions, but the only one national-wide ceremony is in Ulaanbaatar. In Russia and China, there are also Mongolian people, and they hold the competition at state, city, and town level. So why does it stop growing? There are two main reasons, which were local ethnic nationalism and pan-Mongolism. So the external problem is, in the past, Soviet Union and China doesn't want to see that festival growing too big. The idea of uniting three Mongolias in 1990s in order to create a new Mongolia occupies parts of China and Russia. In Russia, there are Tuva, Buryats, Altai, Kalmyks, and Mongolian in Serbia. They covered very big spaces. Also in China, there is Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, and Qinghai. These regions contains big lands from both China and Russia, and holding a ceremony in promoting ethnic masculinity might be a potential threat to China and Russia. When it comes to the modern society, even though Russia and China start to give Mongolian people more rights to promote their own culture, but still, when it comes to organize a formal competition, different ethnicities need to get involved in making the general principles and regulations on the competition to ensure that certain ideology won't be constructed. So that limited the growing of Nadam Festival. There are also internal problems. Corruption and lack of basic professionalized sports regulations are also existed inside of this sports ceremony. Monk Naran from National Security Council of Mongolia in 2021 mentioned that there were bad management in minor horse riders in safeguarding. Considering horse riding, lightweight people are easier to get champions. So there are riders aged around 4 or 5 years old, which who are very slim, could get very good titles. And when it comes to the competitive game, they are very easy to get injured. Also, there were powerful people get tickets much more easier than normal people. Now people tend to attend more local level of Nadam, which could give them more realistic feeling rather than go to the national level ceremony. And it also linked to the gender equality, because in national level of Nadam, there is no section on females' participation in archery and horse racing. Sometimes women could even win a game, compete with a bunch of men, but normally females are not allowed to participate in the national level wrestling, because that was considered dangerous to them. But in local competitions, everyone could get involved in all these three sports. In comparison with other sports, English bring cricket to India, and Indian people grew it bigger. Also, Kabaddi became more regulated, enriched standards, and became a more formal sport. Considering how much colonization and commercializing have helped this sport compared with Nadam ceremony. From this perspective, colonization also helped the evolution of certain sport. It boosted sport to become more internationalized compared with Nadam. Other sports might contain less history, but with colonization they grew big. Even though Nadam is limited by political issues, lack of commercializing, and corruption inside of this ceremony, it is still more close to the original sport, just as a celebration festival.
In conclusion, with all being said, things are changing. Modern issues require modern solutions, and sport must move away from neoclassical views. Sport is engulfed by issues around inclusivity, where as a result of history, those who don't align with dominant white culture or other dominant cultures are oppressed or prosecuted under the umbrella of macro-level discrimination. It is through the understanding of concepts and theories that we are able to break down and understand such phenomena and the intersectionality of issues. Thanks for listening.